Joseph Stalin is one of the most notorious figures of the 20th century, a dictator whose name has become synonymous with terror, repression, and ruthless political strategy. His reign over the Soviet Union, lasting from the mid-1920s until his death in 1953, marked a pivotal and controversial period in global history. Stalin transformed the Soviet Union into a major world power, but at an immense cost in human lives, suffering, and the suppression of basic freedoms. His regime was characterized by purges, forced collectivization, the Great Terror, and an unyielding drive for industrialization, all of which left a legacy of fear, mistrust, and profound tragedy. Born on December 18, 1878, in Gori, Georgia, then part of the Russian Empire, Iosif Vissarionovich Jugashvili, later known as Joseph Stalin, came from a modest and tumultuous background. His father was a cobbler who struggled with alcoholism, while his mother was deeply religious. Stalin's early life was marked by hardship, with his father often absent or abusive, and his mother pushing him toward a career in the priesthood. Stalin's early exposure to the Russian Orthodox Church, and the cruelty he experienced in his youth, seemed to shape his distrust of religion and authority. In his late teens, he joined the Social Democratic Labour Party, a Marxist organization seeking to overthrow the Russian monarchy and establish a socialist state. He adopted the name Stalin, meaning man of steel, which reflected his iron-willed ambition. Once in power, Stalin set about building a totalitarian state where all aspects of life were controlled by the Communist Party. One of the hallmarks of Stalin's rule was the establishment of a personality cult, where he was portrayed as the infallible, almost divine leader of the Soviet people. Soviet propaganda elevated Stalin to godlike status, depicting him as the savior of the nation and the embodiment of the Soviet ideal. His image was omnipresent, with posters, statues, and portraits of him displayed in every public space. Stalin's leadership was marked by absolute control over the Soviet Union. He created a highly centralized state, where all key decisions were made by him or his closest allies. Political opposition was crushed, often violently. Stalin's reign was characterized by his willingness to eliminate anyone he perceived as a threat, whether within his own party or in the broader society. One of the most infamous chapters of Stalin's rule was the Great Terror, which took place from the late 1930s to the early 1940s. During this period, Stalin orchestrated a series of purges that targeted perceived enemies both within the Communist Party and throughout the wider population. The purges were a terrifying campaign of political repression, mass arrests, and executions. Stalin's paranoia about internal dissent led him to accuse many high-ranking officials, military leaders, intellectuals, and ordinary citizens of being enemies of the people. The Great Purge, which reached its peak in 1937 to 1938, saw the arrest and execution of hundreds of thousands of people, including many of Stalin's own former allies. High-profile figures such as Nikolai Bukharin, a former ally of Stalin, were arrested, forced to confess to fabricated crimes, and executed. The purges even extended to the Red Army, leading to the execution or imprisonment of many senior military officers.